Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Friday, the 16th of January. With Robert Murray McShane, we're working our way through Acts. Yesterday we read chapter 15, which begins, certain people came down from Judea to Antioch and were teaching the believers, unless you are circumcised according to the custom taught by Moses, you cannot be saved. This led to conflict with Paul. A delegation was sent to Jerusalem. The first council was called of all the apostles and elders to discuss the matter. They reached the conclusion, you don't have to be circumcised in order to be a believer. And they wrote a letter to that effect saying circumcision isn't necessary, but there are certain moral obligations that you have as a believer. And Paul took this letter and they went back to the churches to encourage them. Chapter 16, which we read today, begins, Paul came to Derbe and then to Lystra, where a disciple named Timothy lived, whose mother was Jewish and a believer, but whose father was a Greek. The believers at Lystra and Iconium spoke well of him. Paul wanted to take him along on the journey, so he circumcised him because of the Jews who lived in that area, for they knew that his father was a Greek. As they traveled from town to town, they delivered the decision reached by the apostles and elders in Jerusalem for the people to obey, and the church flourished. And as I read that, I thought that's an apparent contradiction. They have this letter saying, you don't need to be circumcised, and yet he has Timothy circumcised. Trying to make sense of it, the way it appears to me, and I'd have to go and consult some commentaries, and you'd have to read and think and make your own sense of it. But as one sees how Paul does his ministry, wherever he goes, he goes to town and then goes to the synagogue on the Sabbath and speaks to the people there. The chances are that he was staying with people from the synagogue, some of the Jewish community in that town, and they would put him up. If he took an uncircumcised person with him, that would complicate the matters. He wouldn't be welcomed into Jewish homes because that was against the customs and the commands that Jews lived by, and he probably wouldn't be able to go with Paul on the Sabbath. And so from a purely practical perspective, he has Timothy circumcised so that he can go and stay with the people, be with Paul, and ministry can continue. This had no spiritual significance at all. It wasn't a spiritual motivation for it. It was purely practical. And as I was thinking about it, I thought it's one of those things that as Christians we need to wrestle with and find a way to manage. There are certain things which are spiritually significant, and we're called to stand for the truth and not to compromise, and hold on to that, despite what it might cost us. But there are other aspects which are not that of that order of significance, and they are just practical considerations that one can use to make your decisions. And it seems like Paul used practical considerations in his decision. And as Christians, there's nothing wrong with doing that, doing or not doing things for purely practical reasons. But keeping a balance, knowing that there are certain things which are spiritually vital. We hang on to that. Other things, we use practical decisions to decide what we're going to do. So be challenged as you go through life to wrestle with the issues, to balance the issues, and to always look to the Word of God and remain faithful to that in how we live. Be blessed.